Gotta love that in a Jewish community, you have an introduction of the introduction of the introduction. So I noticed that last night as well. So I will be brief because all of the introductions are actually in the program. However, sorry, I would like to introduce Rabbi Kim Ettlinger, who is going to, behind door number 1, who is going to be our moderator for this evening. Rabbi Kim has... Far out. I need to get another cup of coffee really soon.
I am from Perth, so it feels like evening for me.
And you made it. Well done. Welcome back. Welcome back. Rabbi Ettlinger did some studying at Leo Beck College, did her ordination and double masters at Hebrew Union College, and has worked at the Peninsula Temple Shalom in Northern California, was at Temple Beth Israel for many years, and is currently in Perth at Temple Shalom now.
At Temple David.
Yeah. Thank you. Susan, aren't you glad you asked me to do this task? Yeah, excellent. Excellent. Making sure you're all awake for the... Okay, Rabbi Sergio Bergman, you've heard him introduced many times. You will hear him introduced again. I'm going to point out the highlights because I think it's impressive, right? 100, one of the 100 most influential leaders in the fight against climate change. You cannot say that enough times, so thank you. And I do look to you to inspire my son to be able to combine both the rabbinate and politics and passion for social action and social change. It's amazing. You're an amazing example for all of us, so thank you for being here. Sandy Benjamin also has a, where are you, Sandy? Oh, there you are. You're right in front of me. Okay. Sandy has an incredible background we have a diverse panel today, trying to get people from different points of view to address the issues that we're talking about today, to talk about what is it, how do we live a meaningful life, how do we make sense of looking at Judaism through this lens. So Sandy Benjamin graduated from Melbourne University with an arts degree, studied psychology and social work, taught in La Trobe University, and worked with people with fertility problems. She served as the chairman and president of the Jewish Museum of Australia and was the foundation, and also on the member of the foundation of the National Gallery of Australia. Currently, she is the international vice president at the Florence Melton Mini School. Door number 3. And last but definitely not least, Rabbi Rafi Kaiserblueth is currently working at Emmanuel Synagogue. And he is, I love your bio, I have to say. It is fantastic. World traveler, worked and got his degree at the Jewish Theological Seminary of America, a proud conservative rabbi. Slicha. Did I get any of them right? I don't know. All right. A proud Masorti. I got Sandy, thank you. There you go. You're worth it. There you go. All right. So a proud Masorti rabbi who is currently, he was a chaplain for many years in the United States Navy Reserve. Kind of frightening looking at his photos. But Rabbi Kaiserblueth has 3 children, happily married, enjoys cooking, travel, and anything having to do with airplanes. And a round of applause. Rabbi Ettlinger, without further ado.
I just rushed down to finish my double espresso, which I think was really a triple. Well, so I think I'm the last of the introductions. So if I could invite our panelists to please join me up here. Well, except for Rafi.
I'm always happy to be in the spotlight.
Well, Rafi, you were a Navy chaplain?
I was, and hopefully will be again very soon. Here in Australia this time.
Well, I was a prison chaplain.
Kind of the same thing.
So as our panelists come up, I will share with you how this panel will work. Are we missing anybody? Yeah. Who are we missing?
I don't know, we can take volunteers if you want.
I just saw empty chairs.
Oliver is, no.
I just saw empty chairs. So that confused me. we're easily confused from Perth.
You said it.
I'm from Perth, I can say that. So, how this panel will work is that we have a couple of leading in questions, I should say. Thank you, Rabbi Ninio.
My pleasure, Rabbi. Here for you.
Only Rabbi Ninio is allowed to heckle this morning. I allow one heckler per session. She has that honor. So there are a couple of questions which I will pose to our presenters. Once they have finished, and they are long questions, because the way to get into this topic fully is to really ask deep, is to really ask questions that get to the meat of the topic. So I will ask these, there are two questions that I will pose. Once we feel that our panelists have reached to the depth of these questions, we will then open up for questions from our congregation, our audience, for you to ask questions if you wish. Please don't feel that you have to, but we would like questions, and they are questions. If I feel, and I can be quite tough with this, if I feel that you are going to enter into a statement or your life story, I will stop you. And while I may seem quite sweet, I will not be. I will shut you down and have somebody that looks strong remove you. No, but all seriousness, please, friends, do keep it to a statement. I mean, a question. I need another one, Peter. Can you please get me one? That way, as reporter, you're also out of the room. But please do keep it to questions, and as short as possible. You really don't need extra words in a question. Direct and to the point. So maybe write it down and then cross out the superfluous words.
Be like the Torah.
Now, getting to the questions. After which, Rabbi Allison Conyer will come back up and then thank our panelists, as well as summarize a couple of the key points, because clearly I won't be able to do that on not much sleep. And I'll get some more caffeine. So, to our first panelists, the question that I ask all of you, and you can choose which order you'd like to go in. So everybody's pointing at you, Sandy. So both Rafi and Sergio, Rabbi Bergman, both, and Rabbi Kaiserblueth both pointed at you. Maybe they're going for seniority. What are the religious, or the spiritual, or even the cultural influences that have, over the years, for all of you, defined your Jewish identity? So I'll repeat that for our congregation. What are the religious or spiritual or cultural influences that have defined your Jewish identity? Sandy, you could smile. There we go.
Thank you, Kim. Kim, did you want us to give by way of introduction?
Well, we were hoping that by talking about your Jewish identity, that would introduce yourselves.
Yes. May I have a few moments?
You may have almost as long as you want, as long as you leave time for the others.
Of course I will. Of course I will. What I do want to commence by saying, after I've said good morning, everyone, is to say thank you to Dorothy, to Susan, to Jocelyn, because I'm assuming you're the three people who asked me to speak. And I'm not going to start by saying I'm honoured, I'm humbled, I'm this, I'm that. But I do want to start by saying it's really important to me to be able to enter the Jewish conversation and to enter the Jewish conversation about living Judaism and leading a meaningful Jewish life are big questions for me. So I really do want to say thank you. I will answer very personally. My colleagues, every single one of them, has the title Rabbi. So you already know they're intelligent, they're learned, they come from a structured introduction background. I don't have a title, so I wrote my own. It's a bit long, but I like it, okay? So my title today is going to be Sandy Benjamin, who is excited by the study of Jewish text, and where is the text going to lead me? So that's my personal title for today. I've never spoken about my own private journey publicly, but I think because I do come from a very different place, I'm going to spend a few moments. If I had to say, what sort of Jew am I wouldn't be saying progressive, I wouldn't be saying Masorti. My hand would go up and I'd be saying, I'm a Florence Melton Jew. That's where my Judaism has come from. I think I would say the first 40 years of my life, you'd describe I was lazy. I was a very lazy Jew. I didn't question, I was obedient. What my parents did was good enough. The world of Judaism opened to me when I actually met Florence Melton. She was an American Jew from Columbus, Ohio, who was very aware that she didn't have the tools to enter the Jewish conversation. So she said, if I can't do it, there are plenty of other adult American Jews who can't do it either. So I'm going to do something about it because I can, a successful businesswoman. Went to Hebrew University and they started to design courses, 40-something years later, more than 50,000 Jews around the world have entered the Jewish conversation. I feel I can say I'm one of them. So I have studied Jewish text for 20 years now. And what I'm always looking for is I don't want my Judaism attached to me. I want my Judaism in me. So when I'm thinking about something, I'm thinking about it Jewishly. When I'm thinking about how to deal with issues in my life, I'm thinking about it Jewishly. And when I say that, I study text for me personally, not literally. For me, it is the excitement of where will it take me? What will it open up for me? And the first moment where I had this thought was early in my study days when it was actually a Masorti rabbi who was teaching about what happened on Mount Sinai. And this guy opens his lesson and he says, I don't know what happened on Mount Sinai. I wasn't there. There's a space. I can start to fill the space in a meaningful way. I can read it over and over and over again, depending how I'm feeling, depending what's going on in my life, depending on how many times I've read it. I will read it differently, and it will become alive in a different way for me each time. And that is the wonder, the brilliance of it, the fact that each one of us can make of it what we will. I remember once meeting a guy in Israel who's an archaeologist, and I was told I had to ask him, do you read Torah? So I said to him, "Do you read Torah?" And he looked at me and he said, "Of course I do." He was an archaeologist who specialised in finding water in the desert. He said, "Of course I read Torah. It's the most fabulous geographic document." Yes, that was his reading of Torah, and that was how he made sense of it. At the moment, my struggle is with Moses pleading, begging with God to be allowed to cross into the promised land. Sergio and I are working on a project, the World Union in Melton. My term as International Vice President is coming to an end. And people are saying, "Are you sure you're ready? Are you sure?" I have my successor. My job is done. She will cross over. And the first time I read this text, and I've been reading the biography of Moses by Aviva Gottlieb, what's her other name? She's got a double name. Zornberg. She describes that pleading, and the tears are coming, and I'm thinking, how could it be so harsh? And then I think, it's about succession planning. It is the perfect document of succession planning. And when is the right time? When is the right time not to cross over? My other question when people say, "Don't leave the board, don't leave the board," my response is, my decision will come from reading more about Mount Nebo. Will I watch or will I say no? Succession plan is in place. So that's where I come from. That's how I make my Judaism live for me, and I hope I make worthwhile decisions by having created a way of thinking and responding. Thanks, Kim. I hope it wasn't too long.
The microphone's not working. You should go while I fix it. Pibe, por favor.
Rabbi Bergman.
Sí.
Rabbi Bergman, please. Thank you, Sam.
Thank you, Kim. First of all, Boker Tov, good morning, Berishut Morim Barabanim. With the permission of our master and rabbis here present, I want to thank all of you the opportunity to be together, to bless Shecheyanu, Bekianu, together with Carol Sterling. For us, it's a privilege that the World Union is here. We know that we have the local link with Phyllis in the region, but also the work with the regional leadership. As you know, the stakeholders of the World Union are the regions. And we are working to support, to connect, and to really empower our regions to go ahead and to work in this global networking. We really are trying to change the paradigm not to be an umbrella organization, that is to be a symmetric platform to run out the conversation, the dialogue, the interchange. And I think that this biennial is a huge opportunity, not only for all of you to meet again in person, for us it's a window opportunity to redefine our value proposition, our mission, and the challenge that we need to really address and face after we overcome the COVID crisis, and also to are learning the impact of this crisis and the new global order. In this time that we are talking about how every one of us face Jewish identity, the challenges that we have worldwide, they are huge. In this moment, I want also to remember our sisters and brothers in the Ukraine. We are in the middle of a war. Because if not right now in the media, we believe that it's over. The opposite have not end. And we are really in a crazy war. Who can imagine, no? 70 years after that we are in the same place in Europe, in a war that don't make any sense, and how we fail about global understanding about the rule of the game after the Second War. No? And in this context, I want to address my personal experience, Kim, that you offered to us to share how we really build up our identity. I am really a believer that we are building identity. We are not a race. Our identity doesn't come from the blood. I understood the definition that every shoe is coming from a mother, but you know, it's so easy to understand from the Torah that in biblical times we don't have matrilineal descent. Exactly the opposite, patrilineal. And it's not a reform, progressive innovation. It's something that we really need to be aware that every one of us in this modern world, we are shoes by choice. And this is for me the meaning of progressive, liberal, reconstructionist, conservative Judaism. To live very consistent about what is your covenant with your Jewish identity and how you are ready to fulfill this compromise and not the promise. It's not the same to make a promise. Not to say, you are Jew because your grandchilds are Jew. Doesn't work more. Why? Because the grandchilds are asking for what? What is the meaning? We need the blessed memory of the struggle of the survivors. But we are not more survivors. We are witness. And we are daughter and son of the blessed memory of the collective memory of the Jewish people. That is exactly what Sandy shared with us, what the Torah means. Is a sacred text? Correct. But offer to all of us an open opportunity to take from the text in every context, with different pretexts, new meanings. And this is the creativity, the innovation, and the freedom of the Jewish people. We don't have only one interpretation, but we have a holy text that a round table around the extended Jewish family to come into the table and to say, please, offer to us a new interpretation. Read it, learn it. You must be rooted in Jewish knowledge, but you need to take responsibility about your creativity, how you want to build your Jewish identity. We are identities builders. In the same way that we are community builders, and this is the place. Family and community are the lab, are like the startup incubator of our identity. This is the place that we can really receive legacies, role models, values, institutions, practices, texts, but we take responsibility about our own identity. And this is, for me, now my personal testimony. Coming from Argentina, and I'm really very happy that in this panel we have 2 of 3 that we have Argentinian roots. And I know very well Rafi, dad, that was an Argentinian rabbi that very early he left Argentina and make an amazing career, and really to find his son here leading a community and to meet Rafi was one of the experience. What means that we are one family, one extended family. My personal experience is coming from Argentina. I realized that my identity is connected to the Argentinian history. A country of contradictions. It's the same country that received to my grandpa, my grandma, that they have the opportunity to leave Europe in the Shoah, arriving to Argentina, that offered to them freedom, a new life, and hope. The same country at the same time that when Perón was the president, invite the Nazis to come down to Argentina. If you remember, we have Eichmann, like an example of the long list, with the brave state of Israel that made the right decision to pick up Eichmann from Buenos Aires without any permission. And we have the historical trial in Jerusalem. This is my roots, and this is my country. But Long time ago, I really realized that Jewish identity is a crucial existential decision that you need to choose if you want to become a Jew by choice that build meaning in your life, to make the distinction if you want to be a victim or a leader. Jewish tradition for me is not accept that we are victims. We are not more victims, we are not more survivors. We honor our survivors, but now we became leaders, not of the community and the Jewish people. First of all, the more challenged work that we have is to be leaders for our own identity and life. How you build meaning of your Jewish identity. And also I realized that we are not only a religion, there are not news. We know that. We are not a religion. We practice a religion. This is one of the components of the weight of our Jewish identity. But Judaism is a wider approach about cultural options that we offer to our people to recreate that we are B'nai Brit, that we are part of this covenant. And the diversity and the openness is what means for me progressive Judaism. It's the open space that we offer to choose what we want to be inside the commitment with our roots, our texts, and our values. We are trying to encourage our kids and our next generation not to repeat, to recreate, not to receive the legacy like you must, no, to love your legacy, to keep going. For my personal experience, when I make the decision, first of all, it was a serious one because my first decision was to become a pharmacist and biochemistry. After that, it's not for today, but I can tell you how I moved from science to conscience. It means from science to become a rabbi. But for me, the distinction, and this part of my Jewish identity, is to choose between a profession and a vocation. I really believe that being a Jewish is a vocation. We need to have this vocation. We need to have this passion. And we need to have this commitment to keep going like Jews and to make a clear distinction, that is for me my choice in Argentina, between assimilation or integration. Progressive Judaism is the movement that creates the commitment that to be Jew doesn't mean to have a mental ghetto, is not to be afraid, is to be proud, to bring your Jewish contents and approach to the society that you are living in. Not to assimilate. The opposite is to integrate. But you cannot integrate your identity if you have no identity and not Jewish meaning, and not Jewish values and not Jewish practices. We are communities of practitioners. We have a theology, but we have not a credo. That is what you believe, is what you are doing, root in your beliefs. To finish this personal contribution, I can tell you that the peak of my Jewish identity in my country was to become a representative of the Argentinian people. For me, politics is an ethical, spiritual challenge. I know that sounds very weird, because the gap between politics and politicians is something that in any place we need to fix. But this is the only way that you can really change reality. From my point of view, the Jewish contribution to my community in Argentina was to make it wider. My community in Argentina wasn't the community of the Temple of Libertad, a synagogue. I realized from the same challenges that we have, that we are not more victims, we have 2 bombings in Buenos Aires. The bombing of the Israel embassy in 22, the bombing of the Jewish headquarters in 24. And I decided not to be a victim, to go to the street and to try to move on with the Argentinian people, the values our prophet of Israel about justice, the values about social justice, and to move on with the integration of the Jewish contribution to my society, and the more important work like a rabbi was to become Minister of Environment. The meaning for me to keep an environment like Tikkun Olam that we learned from Netzer when I was a young leader, and we are keep going about Tikkun Olam, was like Noah building the ark. But now, coming back to my identity and coming back to my roots, the opportunity to become the president of the World Union is for me to close the circle. It's like coming back home and to try to share the role models that we need to offer to our next generations, because the next generation need to recreate everything. They need to recreate our institutions, they need to recreate our leadership, and they need to recreate Jewish identity. I hope that we can be really useful for them, not to repeat us, to lead us to the new future of the Jewish people.
Thank you, Rabbi Bergman. Rabbi Kaiserblueth. I didn't know you were from Argentina.
I'm not from Argentina. My dad's from Argentina. I lived there for a year after university. My mom's from Peru. My brother's from Brazil. I was born in Puerto Rico. My sister was born in LA. My two oldest were born in London. My youngest was born here in Sydney.
You are more the World Union than
I know, I'm just showing off right now because, you know.
Do you speak Spanish?
Sí.
Sí.
Sí, claro que sí.
Una más tequila, por favor.
Sí, vale. Well, anything else you want to add?
That's all I need. That's all I need to know.
That's all I need to know, too. That's fine. I find it's a bit, I suppose, interesting that I was asked to speak at a progressive conference, that I'm just truth in advertising. I'm not a progressive rabbi, although more and more I find myself saying, I am a rabbi that happens to work at a synagogue. I have a Masorti background, but that's not my label. That's part of my story of who I am and where I've come from. But if you look a little deeper, I suppose, when I was growing up in LA, I was part of a Reform youth group. I went to Chabad day school. I went to a conservative youth group. My dad is a Masorti rabbi. I'm a bit schizophrenic, maybe, or multiple personality in my Jewish upbringing. And I'm open-minded would be a word that I would use in my maturity. Back then it was... But I think, looking back and honestly thinking, it was a blessing to be so widely exposed, not just in my Jewish life, because made the conscious decision also not to go to a Jewish high school. I went from a very small Chabad day school of maybe 400 students, I think, to a high school with over 4,000 students. And keep in mind, the United States high school is just year 9 to 12. And it was a very jarring experience because you go from a school where everybody knows you to, I need to know which class, what's your number? I said, my name is not, I don't need your name, what's your student number, so I can sort you out. And it was quite the transition. So where does I think it was my religious, spiritual, basically how did I get to where I am and who I am? Cultural. So I think very early on it was very important for my parents, for me, in which I hope to pass on to my children, is I am Jewish, but I am also a citizen of where I live. And it was very important that we don't isolate ourselves. The ghetto is long past, and it was not to see as a negative, but what can I offer, but be very strong in who you are, and don't be afraid of assimilation. And I really believe, as one of the previous chancellors of the seminary, Gerson Cohen, he said, it's the blessings of assimilation, right? It's not that we're afraid of what you're going to lose, it's what you're going to gain, and what you're going to bring in from the cultures around where you live. I mean, look at us. Right? What are we wearing? What are the food that we're eating? What language are we speaking? We have absolutely and very successfully have assimilated over, 3,000-4,000 years. It's how we're still here. Don't be afraid of that. As long as we are educating ourselves in our identity of who we are, we'll be okay, because we have been okay. And the second thing, and I agree absolutely with what Sergio was saying, is I'm going to pass something on to my next generation, to my children, not necessarily only my genetic children, but all the ones that I educate, and I have to be confident enough that what I have given them is then going to be theirs. Very much what you were saying as well, that it's now yours. I have to be okay with what you're going to do with it. And so I suppose one of the things that I love to do is I always teach through text. I love being able to, the richness of our tradition, not just to tell you what it says, but let's open it together and see what it says. And so when I'm working with my bar mitzvah students, we always focus on the Shema. Most of us would understand the Shema as one of the most important statements, and I think the middle 4 or 5 words, V'shinamtam levanecha v'dibarta bam, is the most important part there. That's a secret to our success. It's not a secret, it's written there. And perhaps loosely translated, sit down with your children and talk to them. It's not a secret. Make sure that you are sitting and telling them, educating them, inspiring them. We have a beautiful, rich tradition. We should be making use of it. We should be telling them. There's no need to reinvent curricula or anything like that. Go to the texts. It's there. And inspire ourselves and look on the buffet of amazing wisdom that's there. From across, right? You don't like this opinion? That's fine. I have another one over here. You don't like this midrash? No problem. And you know what? Then you look to the shoulders of those who came before us, even a generation or just a little bit before. They have a new interpretation. Perhaps in the next generation, someone will be quoting Rabbi Sergio Bergman's midrash on whatever, right? And well, in all seriousness, I haven't even told you this, Rabbi Nino, but 2 weeks ago I was teaching the bar mitzvah classes, and I taught a little something. I said, oh, is that a midrash? I said, yes, it's the midrash of Rabbi Nino. It's something that she taught me, right? The learning that we can have is vast, but we only need to open the book, literally open the book. So sit down with your children and talk to them. Spend time with that generation. I mean, we do it at Pesach, we do it at Purim, we make sure that the children are involved, because when we're not here, which in the grand scheme of humanity is not going to be that long, they need to be the ones doing that. So that is part of what drives me. There's also the quotes that we've been fighting for quite a while, I should say arguing energetically about what we're going to put around on our new building. And 2 of them really always inspire me. The first one is the one that I know Rabbi Nino loves, is from the prophet Zechariah, Lo b'chaya, lo b'koch, im beruchi, which is one of my favorite quotes. And it's not by strength, not by might, by my spirit. And I've really always taken that to mean, it's not to say be weak, it's not to say be passive, it's to say whatever you're going to do it with purpose. Be inspired by something, be focused by something. And I am inspired and focused and driven by the tradition and texts that have come before me. And I've been blessed, as I said, to have had a wide range of experiences. Not just Jewish, by the way. Not just Jewish. I've had the experience, I think one of the blessings that I had being in the Navy was we're forced to work and represent people who are not Jewish. In fact, people who are not even religious. You still have to find a way to connect with them. Someone asked me, what's my job? My job is the business of people. I work with people. You have to be able to connect with them. And the highs and the lows and everything in between. And that's where it is. And if you cannot connect with someone in a way, then you're missing an opportunity to build a relationship, to inspire someone. So I always look in those moments, not just to commit or to do something, but to do it with purpose. To do it with purpose, ki'im beruchi, with that spirit. The other quote that I really love, that I always think about, is Ivdu et Adonai besimcha, serve God with joy. And for 2 reasons. One is, again, very much agree with Sergio. I'll be blunt, I don't care what you believe. I care what you do. Because by your doing will inform your belief. And so in that idea of service, we are doing these things, we'll build our identity and build our belief. But more importantly, perhaps, is doing that with joy. I tell the students that I'm working with, I don't want you to be committing or to be observing laws of Shabbat, for example, if all you're thinking about is what I'm not allowed to do. Don't do it. They're surprised when I say, well, don't do it then, if that's all you're thinking about. I want you to see it as what it can add to your life. All the different things that we do, what is that going to add to your life? And that is, in a nutshell, I think, where I've come from. All the things that I've been able to glean, both from my Jewish upbringing, from my parents, from my friends, from my community, the society, and places that I lived, in London, New York, Buenos Aires, here, Los Angeles. Each of those places, I never felt that I was just a Jew. That's not who we are. Yeah, it's difficult. We have to live in that tension, straddling two different identities sometimes. That's part of the gig. That's part of who we are. And that's part of how we survived and how we will survive. To continue to understand the blessings of what it means to go to each of these different places, take an element of wherever that was, and bring that in. Whether that be the language, whether that be some idea of worship, or dare I even say Vegemite. That's who we are. I love Vegemite, by the way, so just want to put that out there. So that's my answer.
Thank you. Okay. So I hope that you learned a little bit more about Rabbi Kaiserblueth, Rabbi Bergman, and Sandy Benjamin. I think that really gets to the essence of what brings them to the point in their lives at this time. Moving into our next question, what we know is what brought us all here today, we're not just Jewish. We have our values, our progressive Jewish values, our Jewish values that brings us to this conference, to the UPJ biennial. And the next question that I'm going to ask is bringing us to a different concept. And the question that I'm asking is, as progressive Jews or as a Masorti Jew?
As Jews.
We're more than just Jews.
That's true.
We're more than just Jews because we are here out of an interest and out of a sense of learning to understand better who we are in the 21st century. We're proud of who we are. We're proud of our Judaism. We have standards of inclusivity. We're sitting in our synagogues, we're sitting together as men and women, we're sitting together as members of the GLBTQ community, and we know that with this, and the question that I'm asking is, do our communities, our shuls, our organizations live up to these standards that we want to push forward, that we so believe in? How can we be better? Have we lost at any point along the way in reaching and striving towards these goals? Have we lost any part of our identity? What have we gained? Have we lost anything for inclusivity? Have we paid any price for social awareness? Who would like to go first? I know there's a lot of questions and a lot of questions within that, but this is...
It is an honour to go first.
Thank you, Sandy.
Three of us...
And wait, before you go, Sandy, after this question, what we'll do then, because we will then open it up to all of you for questions. Again, I invite you to write your question down. Make sure you get your statement out on paper, cross it off, and then ask your question.
Thank you, Kim. Three of us have come here today. We did not prepare jointly, but I think totally separately, we all went. Torah is the starting point, but interpret it, own it, make it your own. I think we all said exactly that, and I didn't say it, but my resume did in my involvement in the arts world. We are all living as well in a non-Jewish world. So what this question raises for me in particular, have we got that balance right, or did we tip too far in terms of inclusivity, acceptance? My I know I'm answering a question with a question, but I hope that will lead on to other things. Were we strong enough in where we came from our understanding and love of Torah, to get the balance right? Or did we become somewhat overtaken by social pressures, e.g., keeping up the numbers in our congregation, getting in the young people? What were the other forces that were at play in us taking the stance, or the stances that we have taken? And do we need to revisit our roots and be more explicit in the combination of all the factors? So I know I'm answering a question with a question, but I hope that adds something to it.
Okay. Not an easy question, because this is what we are struggling. The balance and the tension to be open, but the question, open for what? And this is for me the conversation. We accept to be open-minded and inclusive. The question is if we are sure what is our mission and what is our content and what is our really commitment. And I really believe that this is exactly the best opportunity that we have. If we really decide to be, because of our values, inclusive and respect minorities and to open our communities and families to diversity, in the same time that we are doing that, we need to be really, really consistent with the commitment and the covenant. For what we are inclusive. If we are inclusive because we must be inclusive, because this is what the society really imposed to us, or is it really something that we are convinced? It's a belief. If it's a value for us, we need to balance this openness, not to have any risk that we will lose, the opposite, we will gain, because this is the way to be really consistent about the commitment that we took. For example, we invite everyone to come home, because for us, Jewish tradition builds home. In our families, in our community, we invite all the people came, and this is not new. This is not modern. This is not reform. If not, how we can really explain what we done in biblical times, in the Torah? How we were really open. I don't need really to talk about Naomi and Ruth. Only we need to talk about the wife of Jacob, from Jacob, who is Jew. This is exactly what we need really to came back to our sources and to face the new future. And what we need to use is the same glossary of terms of our covenant. We can renew the meaning, but we can lose the identity of our institutions and values and practices. For example, we welcome everyone not to read Torah, to be Torah. It's not about knowledge. It's about the minimum knowledge to become part of the covenant. We are really inviting everyone to be progressive and also Zionist. And this is another clear understanding about the openness. We are open to have discussion about the government of Israel, but we need to stand by the state of Israel ever, in every place. And this is part of our tension when we are in an open society, when we are listening about criticizing Israel, and we are really clear that anti-Zionism now is an expression of anti-Semitism. Not because you cannot criticize the government. We must, because if we have values and we are aligned with this challenge, this is what we need to do. But we need to stand by the state of Israel. And we need to stand by minorities and inclusiveness. Another question, and maybe here we can talk about that, is how Jewish is the Israeli society and how aligned with the values that we pursue is the government. But this is a challenge to become the Israel that every one of us support. In the same way that we welcome everyone to be a Jewish person, but also a citizen. What is your commitment with the civil rights? What is your commitment with social justice in your society? It's not that because you fulfill the conversion on the inclusiveness, you are done. You are not done. It's only the beginning, because Jewish tradition is an ongoing process, changing every time, and this is the last thing that I really believe, that like Masorti and Reform, I have the two smichot. I mean, I work in Android and Apple, in the two systems, and I really believe that you are right, that the streams is something old, and we need to keep our denominations, but to build something bigger, to build something more inclusive. Doesn't make any sense that we are inclusive with different kind of people and we are not inclusive in denominations. That we are open to have interreligious dialogue, but not ecumenical Jewish dialogue between denominations. And that means for us that also Orthodox, we need to invite them to the conversation, but to stop them when they want to impose us what we need to do. And this is the only limit. It's not that we are limited to talk with them. No, the opposite. We need to be really open-minded in any direction, but very consistent about what drives us to some clear north. Why we are Jewish by doing, and what is our really commitment to succeed to deliver the universal message of the particular way that the Jewish tradition is offered to humankind and not only to our people.
Thank you.
I think I'd answer that a little bit differently to say, sure, we can be open to, but no, we're not everyone is welcome as part of our group. You're welcome to be here and experience it with us, but to be very clear about who we are, I need you to opt in to what we are doing. And we can have an honest-to-God continuing dialogue about what that is. There is a drive, I think, to dissolve the differences. I have no issues with differences as long as those differences are respected. I have absolutely no problem in engaging with those, and I've done many times discussing and working with people who disagree with me on a practical, a belief, a theology, or whatever the case may be. I'm fine with that, and I think we should celebrate that. I think, however, that I am not open to anyone and everyone becoming a part of my group if they are not willing to buy in actively who I am. That's the limit. You want to bring part of my group and then change who I am, I'm sorry, that's not going to work. And I will freely admit when I have drawn those lines incorrectly or when times evolve. I will admit, when I was growing up, the thought of a woman becoming a rabbi and becoming part of a minyan was anathema to me. It was, maybe anathema is a bit too strong, but I grew up in a traditional, and I use the term very loosely because I don't think it is anymore, but a synagogue that did not count women. And that was probably not, where are you going, by the way? Are you walking away from me? Thank you. We can change. We have to be open to that and understanding some of those distinctions that we draw are simply based on culture or comfort. But our job as leaders here is to really, before I can push you, I need to push myself. It wasn't that long ago that I would have said, performing a marriage for a same-sex couple, are you out of your mind? I'm doing one in a couple weeks. More than one, that's fine. The idea is it's not a static line that never moves. But to be a group needs to have some kind of boundary. And so have we lost ourselves, I think was part of the question. I think there is that...
What have we lost?
What have we lost? I don't know what we have lost, but I can tell you we've sure gained a lot. And we are reaching people in a way... Listen, there's a big difference in what you study in the ivory tower of seminary and what you do when you're out in the field. And I remember my halacha teacher, Rabbi Joel Roth, he was very, what would be the right word here? I respect him completely, especially because he said, in many of the positions that he had, is, listen, I'm teaching the theory. I'm in the seminary. I'm in the ivory tower. And I can't tell you what it's like to be out in the field. I've never served as a pulpit rabbi, and I never will. And so there is the theory, and then there's a reality. And so we straddle that line.
I just wanted to add on to that, if we could also look at contemporary social pressure and having the capacity to respond to that solidly and in an informed way.
Absolutely. I think we're naive to think that that doesn't influence us. Of course it does. As I tell people, Judaism is great at changing. It's not very good at changing quickly. Anyway, I can go on, but I'm getting the evil eye, so...
So that's a great plug for the session that Dr. Keller and I are leading this afternoon at, I think, 4 o'clock on gender. So come along to that. I'd like to now move towards you, our congregation. I'm not going to call you an audience because we are a congregation, we are a kahal. No, you don't have to do that. We did spend a lot of time in rabbinic school on that.
It's a whole sermon.
Yes. Questions. And I would like to ask you to rise in your spot, and state your name, just in case our reporter would like to quote you in the Australian Jewish News. No, but please. And then what I will do is I will repeat your question because I believe we are live streaming this session. Please rise in your space, and then Rafi, I will come to you. Oh, you've got a microphone. So that's the order in which we will go, I believe.
Hi, Kim. It's lovely to see you, and thank you to everyone who's contributed to this panel.
Can I also ask, just for time, we don't have to thank our panellists.
All right. I've done it for everyone, so nobody else has to do it. Forgiveness. Could you please give us your perspectives on how we manage forgiveness with situations like the trashing of the planet for profit, human slavery, abuse, terrorism? How do we manage forgiveness and living a good Jewish life?
Yes. Can we also maybe try to keep our answers brief? And you don't all have to answer.
Brief. Yes. Too brief. I think when you're looking at the question of forgiveness, and with Bereshut, I'll take this one, and you can take the next one. It's going to be harder, I think. I don't know if it makes a difference if you're talking about an individual or a group or a people or the planet. It depends on certain principles. And the first one, and the process, I would say, is you have to acknowledge what you've done. There are still too many people we do not acknowledge that we are trashing the planet. Sorry, I don't remember the other examples. I think you said abuse and other things. But it doesn't really matter. It's more of... Before you can, it's a principle not just in Judaism, but it's simply before you can fix the problem, you have to acknowledge there's a problem. And we are working very, very hard at that, but I can't forgive somebody if they don't even accept or acknowledge they've done something wrong. And so I think part of our role as Jews, in whatever stripe we are, is to bring that awareness that, hey, there is a problem here. You, me, us, we have been complicit in something, whether it be environmental damage or destruction, human trafficking. I'm sorry, I don't remember all the different examples, but each and every one of them, whether we want to accept it or not, because of the privileged lives that we live, we are complicit in that. And we need to raise our voice and to say, we're not doing enough. Not me, not you, us. Because in many ways in Judaism, the me and the I doesn't exist. You look at the liturgy of Yom Kippur, it's never I did this, we did this. So the first step in that process is we need to acknowledge that problem. Then we can go on to fixing that. But I think that would be al regal echad how I would answer that question.
Thank you, David. Question, bearing in mind that choice and the upholding of standards are the daughters of knowledge, what can the progressive movement do to achieve first click on the internet for people who have any question about Judaism to be competitive with a movement beginning with C?
I think that, you know, internet and technology is an opportunity, but not the solution. Because we need to use the technology to offer some meaningful content and to address the people to somewhere. We are not selling a product. We are offering our way to live. And this is to say, but for me, the key question here is not how we deliver what you offer, is we have the courage to rethink the content, what we are and what we offer. And I can tell you only two things, because I think that we criticize others, but with reasons about some fundamentalist positions, but also we need to learn from others when they succeed. And here the key question is not if they are right or wrong, it's the way that they are doing what they are doing. And they are doing this with passion. They are 100% aligned with the mission. And that, the answer for me, is before we use technology, internet, and all these marketing tools, is leadership. Professional and lay leadership. My question, and not my answer, is if we are really aligned 100% with our mission, like progressive shoes, in any denomination. And the second one, to make it very short, is we are ready like reform shoes to reform the reform. We are ready like progressive shoes to progress and to move on. Or we are keep going doing more of the same because we became also reformodoxy. And this is exactly the challenge. If you are talking about others, I can tell you they are modern. They have a lot of creativity and innovation. They took any new opportunity to deliver what they really believe, but they have a mission, and they have a passion, and they have the fire to go to any corner of the world and to make the job that they are committed to. And this is, for me, what we need to discuss. Because we are open-minded, because we are liberal and progressive, and because we are reform, doesn't mean that we are liked. Doesn't mean that we are a sociological movement. We are an ideological one. Doesn't mean that we are not only religious. We have a wider, really, opportunity in the cultural approach, but we can change this openness to be liked in leadership, commitment, and passion.
Thank you.
Judy Hall from Emmanuel Synagogue. I'd be very interested from the three of you, your comment, Sergio, about not to repeat but recreate. In terms of how we could recreate our communal institutions and communal structures, especially regarding our youth and our communities that are very quickly dispersing for various reasons.
There had to be a question for which there isn't one answer. There isn't. Progressive Jews, we know where we come from, but we live in the here, the now, and the where. Do we understand why they're dispersing? That would be my first question. What is it that is failing to capture people? And then I think we need to look at ourselves. What can we do to reverse that? And that's going to be different in various communities. Then you say we do grab the new inventions. We can reach you in a way which is appropriate for where you are in your life at this moment, e.g. technology. We know that people with 3 kids, mortgage, jobs, holidays, school, sport, they're not going to come every week unless they are living in an Orthodox community where they don't have the choices. We have to look at how are we going to make it an attractive choice to do this. So because we are open to modern technology, in these situations, in smaller communities, let's use it. Use it to our advantage. Become part of their life in the way they live their life. They live their life on their laptops, on their iPads. Get them. And I don't want to be an ad for Milton. Please don't take it as that. The best grant we have just received is $10,000 a month of Google advertising. Okay? How do you do it? Grab. 3 seconds. How do you keep the grant going? You've got to get a certain number of clicks every month, and then you move them into becoming students. Short courses, longer. But this was the best grant we could ever have been given. $10,000. We're the first one you open. When you go to Jewish learning or stuff like that, bingo, we're number 1. So get with it, is my answer. Oh, may I add to it? The person who is managing this project for Milton, okay, an Orthodox Jewish woman in Jerusalem. You know Allison? Yeah, Allison. And this Orthodox Jewish woman is so switched on. And when you hear her talk about this, it's jaw-dropping. And it's a winner.
As we know, Milton is multi-denominational. Yes. I'll do the ad for you.
Thank you, thank you.
Sefi Schiller.
Thank you.
Can I just, one more thing I'd like to add to that, if I may, is that I'll disagree a little bit. I think the question is somewhat incorrect. And what I mean is, we have...
You're Rabbi.
Yeah, oh, exactly. Listen, you guys are telling me when I'm wrong all the time. Let me do it once. The whole point of why we're here is to create meaning in our lives. There is a competition out there, but I don't need, if all I'm worried about and all I'm investing in is the flash, the gimmicks and all that, at some point that's going to run out, and then what's left? The substance is what I need. Once I have that, then I can deliver it in any way that I want. But if we're not clear about what we are and who we are and what we're passionate about, why is that person going to want to come and be part of my group? It's very simple. Be very clear about who I am, inspire that by the substance and the basics of who we are. I'm not in competition with them. I am selling my product. I'm very confident in who I am and what I am. And if I extol that, I'll be fine. But it's form of delivery we're talking about. The form of delivery is irrelevant if you don't have anything to deliver.
No, but you've got to...
I think we've got time for only one more question, and then after Sefi, Rabbi Allison Conyer will come up and thank our panelists and do a short summary. I have no doubt that our panelists will be able to continue the conversation if you have further questions after this session. No, they're saying absolutely no. They never want to talk to any of you again. In fact, maybe straight from this, they'll be getting on planes and disappearing forever. You'll never see them again. No, but I'm sure they'd be happy to, if you have specific questions afterwards. I'm sorry that it's been wonderful, I know, but we do have to, good things must come to an end. Sefi, over to you, and then Rabbi Conyer, if you could then come up.
My question is about something very basic in progressive Judaism. So when I work with Netzer, a lot of what I do is to help the young people kind of find their way around the grown-ups world. And most of the questions I have to help them with is community politics. Just Gaia is smiling because we did an hour and a half about community politics earlier this week, and she was shocked by why do we need to waste so many resources and energy on that rather than investing them in something much more meaningful and productive. So is there any way to work around it and to avoid it? And is being reformed in a way became the worst form of Jewish community politics? Because it does seem so at the moment, at least in a specific part of the universe.
Sorry, your question is, do we need to invest in spending time in politics? Is that what the... Or communal politics? I didn't...
Is progressive... Does progressive Judaism has the worst form of politics? Or
Is
can
communal
you
politics the
avoid
worst form of politics?
Is there any way to
it?
get
Can
rid
you
of
avoid
that?
it? Can you avoid communal politics?
Or at least not to waste so many resources on it and energy.
Communal politics. Sure, if you don't want to be involved at all. It's your turn. I've answered everything. Fine, okay.
Okay.
Let the politician answer.
Yeah, you're the politician, man.
No, this is community politics. You see. But I think that community is politics. The problem is which kind of politics. This is for me the question. You are right. There are room to reshape the politics that we are using in community. If the politics that we're using is to build community, or the politics that we are using is to split communities. This is a tool, politics. The question is how we use it. And maybe you are right that some experience that we have is why we are using politics in the wrong direction. But I really believe that not only that, I think that Jewish tradition teach us how to address to the good things, politics. And this is what really need to understood, that is not something that we need to reject, it's something that we need to recreate and to really fill with meaningful values of Jewish tradition, how to really believe that politics lead us to a better place. And this is part of our openness with the society. We cannot have different kind of politics inside the community, but we are changing the problems that we have in the society, because we are part of this, and this is the challenge, inside and outside the politics. But I am really encourage the young people to take a lead in politics, inside and outside the community. We need to encourage them to say, you know what, if we are doing it wrong, you can make it do it better, but don't go out from the track. You need to be on track of politics to make better your neighbor, your country, and also your community. You need to be involved. And this is one we discuss also what you say about Netzer and Tamar, how we can really have not a youth movement, how we can have youth organizations and institutions, and how we can really bring in the young people to lead us. It's not the same to have a youth department, to have youth leaders leading us in the community.
Rabbi Bergman, I'm going to cut you off because we're going to stay on task for a second here. And did you want to say something? Real brief. Okay, really brief.
And carrying on that, we have this bifurcation that does ourselves a disservice. You're training youth leaders, and then when they get to the pinnacle, thank you very much, you can leave, instead of a natural progression into leadership positions in communities. And exactly what you said before. Go back to the first thing you said, succession planning. We've cut that off. And this is politics. We, as the current leaders, need to be comfortable and confident enough to begin to disperse and bring on those who are, dare I say, younger, different, distinct, different opinions. Because otherwise, and the message we need to be giving them is, okay, you are the ones who are going to be sitting here. You can't disengage from the process. You can't. And we need to encourage that.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Also,
I am just going to add my very brief 2 cents to that. I think, and it's just going back on what you just said, Rabbi Bergman, at the beginning. Politics, I think it's about what you do with it and what's the intention behind it, right? Politics aren't inherently good or inherently bad, right? It's when you use it to knock someone else down for your own good that's the problem. But as Rabbi Kaiserblueth said, to respect difference, to appreciate difference for the sake of getting to a greater and better whole, that's the benefit of politics. So it's how do we use the politics to increase and improve the whole is really important. Before I thank you, I just want to I want to summarize, because there's a lot of ideas, a lot of divergency, and a lot of really incredible ideas. Rabbi Bergman, I can tell why you are also in politics, because you've got great, bite pieces, right? I've got a bunch of quotes from you, not to repeat, but recreate, right? I heard someone else repeat that as well. We want to build meaning, right? So what does it mean, according to our panelists? How do we build our religious, spiritual, and cultural influence to define our Jewish identity? In summary, this is what I got. Sandy, you talked about the text, right? Jewish identity is understanding and finding the text within and how the text is going to lead us and shape us as to who we are. Rabbi Bergman, you talked about Jewish identity being about passion, meaning, mission, and leadership. Right? Those are the things that we need to put together, not to repeat, but recreate, to be able to use our tradition as a foundation, but not stop there. You talked about being Jewish is a vocation, which I thought was important, and to be a community of practitioners, I think is a really important. How do we take our Jewish identity from its foundations of text and practice it, and how do we show that? Rabbi Kaiserblueth, you spoke about Jewish identity being about doing, about having a purpose, is about the opportunity to connect and inspire, right? That's what Jewish identity means, and about having joy in doing. Very, very important things. For me, I get to have my 2 cents in the last word. For me, I was inspired by one of my teachers, Rabbi Lawrence Kushner, many years ago, who was teaching us text, and he said that the text should be a mirror. And every time you read it, like you said, Sandy, every time we read that text, we should be able to see ourselves in it. Because if we can't find ourselves in it, it's someone else's, it's not ours, right? And one of the things that all 3 of you said, you all talked about meaning. You all talked about finding meaning, and even at the end between Sandy and Rabbi Rafi, whether or not it's you grab them with the advertising or you have the substance, you can't have one without the other. If you have the substance and you can't catch them, there's no point. But if you catch them and you have no substance, they won't stay. You need both, right? You need to attract and you need meaning, right? The one thing I will say to disagree with some of you up here is that I do really believe, you talked about having a different identity, right? To integrate. Well, you had a difference between integration and assimilation over there. Assimilation is about losing your sense of identity. Integration, as you said, is about bringing who you are into your world, again, for the greater good. For me, and this is where I think the Orthodox do it better than we do, is because they don't have to choose. It's not about choice, but it's not about you have to do it this way. It's about integration of identity into yourself. I firmly believe, for me, I live life as a Jew. I am a Jew. That is the prison through which I understand the world. It is not about my Jewish self and my other self. And yeah, I know I'm a rabbi, and people use that as an excuse. But even if I weren't a rabbi, which is why, be proud Jews. You don't have to be Jewish leaders. You can be proud Jews and be leaders in what you do. But don't separate. Judaism is about going to shul. It's about your religious self. Every single decision we make is because we're Jews. There is no separation. So to be clear about the substance, as you said, to be clear about who we are, to choose meaning, passion, to be consistent with our mission and our identity is about an integration of self and world, not one without the other. So that's my 2 cents that I wanted to add in terms of forming Jewish identity. I would hugely like to thank Rabbi Kim Ettlinger. Thank you for your humorous facilitation of this and for being able to direct and get everyone on page. Thank you very much. Thank you to our incredible panelists. We love your views, your different views, your similar views. Thank you for sharing who you are and how you got here with us. And thank you for inspiring us with who you are. Thank you all very much.